What's going on? This is Richie Concertesi with the Next Play podcast. And today we have a very special guest, someone who's got a really, really cool book launch coming up here today, actually. And Angie is a master certified coach, the author of the Non-Negotiable You. I like that title. And creator of the Morning Mindset Journal, which is called Start With You. She's a speaker and co-owner of a global alternative investment firm. And this is something that stood out to me when I started doing research on her, is that if you Google her and you Google her website, look at her Google reviews. They are really good. There's a lot of them, and they're not like the real good reviews. So anyways, I think that's powerful, and that says a lot about people. So Angie, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Richie, and thanks for speaking about the reviews. That's really nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's important, and I think like yours are really good, and that
Thank you.
So, all right, so I want to talk about the Non-Negotiable You. It's your book launch, and like it sounds really good because I don't think you should be negotiable. What is it? What is the Non-Negotiable You? Where did that come from?
Yeah, the Non-Negotiable You is pretty much this version of yourself that is kind of elevated. It's capable of everything that you didn't even know you were capable of. It's capable of creating your best life, your most meaningful success. And it's like this elevated version that doesn't get so sidetracked by external noise and, the thoughts that run through your head and everything else that usually puts people into a place of scarcity or fear or lack. So it's really this highlighted version, this elevated version of yourself that is really capable of anything you want.
Like that. And so is it focus? Is it like, so you're saying basically instead of all the things that are happening in your life, all the distractions, the negative thoughts, whether physical or mental, there's something else. Right? What is that? What's the other? What can you do? What's like, you know what I mean? As far as the non-negotiable, to not allow these things to prohibit you from moving forward.
Yeah, great question. And I'll kind of back it up a little bit about how it was developed, like you ask. Back in 1997, when I
good place.
Yeah, back in 1997, I started my first kind of real career job at Morgan Stanley as a financial advisor. And I probably wasn't necessarily equipped to do so. I am a great salesperson, so I sold the manager on giving me the job. And, there I was. And for a couple of years, I was living in this place of like, I did good. I was successful. I was in the top part of like my class and I had clients that loved me, but it was just like, okay, it was a little lackluster. And I was constantly going, what am I supposed to say? How am I supposed to dress? So there was this lack of authenticity. I was always in my head about what people think and, what I should or shouldn't do and say. And, my mind was kind of controlling me. I didn't necessarily fill myself up with what I loved. I literally was like crossing days off of a calendar. And I thought that was normal. And it just kind of dawned on me one day. I'm like, I'm burning half of my capacity at like nonsense. I'm using half of my mental bandwidth about worrying what other people think, letting my mind control me, lack of authenticity, not trusting myself, all these pieces. And I was like, there's got to be a better way. I always believe that you're capable of anything that you want, but I hadn't yet figured out who you had to be in order to do that. And that's how it came about. And then, a couple of pieces to give you an idea are like, one, like your values. Two, your self-awareness. How do you control your mind? How do you actually trust yourself every single day to make conscious decisions that align with your best interests? How do you show up authentically? All these pieces that I figured out, if you live that way, you were unstoppable. You had 100% of your bandwidth to actually create and live the way you wanted to.
So how do you live that way?
Yeah, I mean, a couple different things. One, it's a very proactive start to your day. You have to take control of that. You start your morning, and that's where that morning mindset journal Start With You comes into play. It's like I sat down with myself every single morning. I still do. I've done it forever. I've got journals and journals of, years past, and basically going, what do I want out of this day? How am I feeling? What are my intentions for the day? What am I affirming? What am I asking for? Visualizing. That made me the creator of my day, so that it wasn't just like, okay, whatever happens, happens. And, hopefully it turns out to be a great day and I make some progress towards my goals. So that's a big part of it, is creating your day and, putting you at the beginning of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I think a lot of people definitely just like, what's the first thing that people do when they wake up in the morning?
They grab their phones.
Right.
Right? Yeah.
Well, because then it's not about you. It's like your email, Facebook, TikTok,
Yeah.
or whatever, text
Yeah.
message to people. So what you're saying is, instead of letting other people dictate your day, you start it, you decide what you're going to do, you decide how you're going to feel, or
100%.
share how you feel and decide what you're going to
Yeah.
do about it.
100%. And that's like one of the first questions in the journal is, I feel. And then the second one is, your adjustment. What can you do? So if you feel grumpy, if you feel, disorganized or unfocused or whatever it may be, do something about it. Don't be a victim of it. Choose a different thought, choose a different action that's going to put you out of that. Don't be that person who said, oh, I had a horrible day and it started first thing in the morning. It was going to be that way all day long. Like, that's just victim mentality. And you don't have any control over your day or your life when that's how you show up.
Yeah. Yeah, totally true. So how do you go about doing that? So you said adjustment, we call it a next play, right? Like,
Yeah.
how do you go about doing that? Like, what's your process for doing that? For
It's
deciding
about
what that will be?
Yeah, two things. One, you have to have your values into consideration. Like, what are the most important things to you? What do you value? Because that's what you're going to align with your, just choices, your intentions. But you also have to know how to control your mind. Everyone thinks that our mind controls us, that, oh, I can't control it. It's what I thought, it's what I felt. But really, it's the opposite. You have total control to choose your thoughts and to feed your mind what you want it to. So in that moment, you get to decide. If you feel like crap and you don't want to feel that way, you're like, okay, let's see. What am I going to do? What's going to make me feel a different way? How do I want to feel? I want to feel energetic. What should I do to feel energetic? I don't care if you say have a double espresso or if you say go for a mile run, but you've got to look inward and empower yourself in order to change the way you feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you ever find that people struggle with that? Like they've even like come to the realization, like, I have the journal, I know that I need to focus on the next action item that's going to help me get out of the state that I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
But they're just so down on themselves. They're just so like, that they just say F it, and then they don't, or they just let themselves go. Like,
yeah.
What do you do in that scenario?
I'm a firm believer that, look, like, you're in a similar business, right? We help elevate people, help them make the decisions that are, your next play or your adjustment. But there's only so much that we can do. And people have to take, one of the chapters in my book, you have to take responsibility. And that's up to them. Only they can choose whether or not they want to be responsible for the way they feel. And, I tell my clients and people who use it, like, look, you may not feel like doing it, but does it align with your values? And so we have to get out of this place of doing something or not doing it because we don't feel like it. Well, I feel so down, so therefore I'm not going to do anything. It's like, well, then you have to accept responsibility that you're going to stay down. And so I like to tell clients, like, I want you to put your two choices in your hands here, right? And go, I'm choosing to stay down in the dumps, or I'm choosing to kind of elevate myself and be happy or move and get some energy. As long as you have those two choices, that's all we can do, is look at those and then decide, which one do I want? And I find so often that when people create that awareness and they give themselves that choice, it's very few people who choose the negative path when you consciously have that choice. Now, we do it subconsciously all day long, right? Like you skip out on your agreement, or you don't do anything about it, you should. But usually it's not when you've had that clear conscious choice in front of you and you're saying, yeah, I'm choosing to go ahead and continue to feel like crap today. Not a lot of people do that.
Right. No, I think it probably comes from more of a place of anxiety or depression
Mm-hmm.
or something where they're just in such a bad place that it's so hard to get out of it. So
For sure.
do you do anything from an outside perspective when people are just not able, like they want to take responsibility but they just don't know consistently what to do next?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, everyone is different, but if it's not something from like a mindset perspective of like, I just need to choose what's going to put me in the right place, and they are in a place of anxiety or worry, to me, I always say that's a future oriented thought. That's where anxiety comes from. That's where worry, stress, all of that. So if you're telling me that you have too much anxiety or depression or stress or worry, that tells me that you're not here in the present moment. And so you have to first get present in order to start choosing those thoughts, in order to get yourself out of that place. And so, we've got a couple different things, and everyone has different ways of doing it, but
Yeah.
as little as like getting grounded, right? Rubbing your fingertips together, even like moving your hands, rolling your wrists, anything that associates some kind of body movement will bring you back to the present moment. Put your feet on the floor, shrug your shoulders, but we've got to get our head back here in the present instead of the future or the past where we have that remorse, the guilt, the, fear, worry, anxiety. Those will definitely keep you in that state of, at less than an ideal state.
Right. So what do most people do when you say the
Yeah.
non-negotiable you? Do
Yeah.
they negotiate with themselves? Like walk me through that.
All day. I mean, you probably see the same thing, right? All day long, excuses. When, oh, I was going to get this done for my business today, and then I got this call, or a client needed something, or I was going to get to the gym but I was running late. That's all negotiating. And people do that with themselves all day long, and what they don't realize is that you are basically setting this agreement with yourself where you're like, I don't trust you. I can't depend on you. And that goes a really long ways when you're talking about building a successful business, a life, relationship with yourself, if you can't trust yourself. So,
Yeah.
you have to have this non-negotiable relationship with yourself where, yeah, if you say you're going to do something, you do it. And the
I
funny
love
thing is,
that.
we do it for other people all the time, right?
Mhm. Totally. Where did you come up with the name? How did you come up with it?
For a long time, I would talk to clients about saying, once you decide something, it's non-negotiable. If you're telling me and you're telling yourself that you're going to work out, that you're going to do this business building or development, it commit to it, that is a non-negotiable now. And also with values, what fills you up, what brings you joy every day. It's like those are non-negotiables. You have to get those in your life on a daily basis if you want to have joy, if you want to have energy, motivation. So many of the things that I would talk to clients about as far as like their best life and building their business were non-negotiables. And when
Mm,
I set out to work on these few pieces, I was like, this is it. And each chapter of the book, as it explains kind of another non negotiable piece, it's like, if you show up like this every day and you trust yourself and you're authentic and you take responsibility and you know how to control your mind and it fills you up, that is the non negotiable you. And watch out. I mean, you're unstoppable at that point.
yeah. I really like that. I think it's important.
Thanks.
You make a decision, there's no more negotiation at that point. You've got to do it. Okay, so
Yeah.
you have the morning routine, and you said there was a
Yeah.
couple steps. So what's after that?
In the morning routine itself, or
No, you said there was a couple things to do
yes.
in order to become a non-negotiating you, right?
Yes, yes.
So what are some other things that you share or teach in the book?
Absolutely. The first is right, starting your day that way,
Yeah.
proactively creating the day that you want. And then it's like, as you move through your day, are you showing up authentically? Are you taking responsibility for your thoughts, your decisions, your actions? Do you trust the way you're leading yourself? And so that's kind of our intraday, right? You've got to keep showing up like that and moving through your day like that. I'm sure that's very familiar to you, right? With your, football background and who you train. We've got to have those pieces. And, when you're doing that, and then at the end of the day, you can really reflect and almost coach yourself. Have this built-in accountability partner to say, all right, did I do what I said I was going to do? And if I didn't, what did I learn and what went wrong? We've got to have a way to kind of like look at, the previous day's tape, right? And figure out where our mistakes were, how we can get better. And where did you find joy? What was your win for the day? So that third piece of it is really recalibrating and learning from what we did so that tomorrow we get to show up and take a better stab at it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so do you mentioned having like an accountability person, because I think there's so many different types, right? For yourself or from others. Is that something that you do as well with people, or like, how do you go about, or do you teach people to go out and find others that can be their accountability partner?
It depends on what you're looking for accountability for. It's funny, and you probably know this. Most people who come to somebody for coaching or leadership or mentorship, one of the number one things you're looking for is accountability, because people tend to, which basically just even reaffirms the title of my book, right? They want to be accountable to somebody else because they'll keep their promise to somebody else, but they won't keep it to themselves. Right. And that's why they seek accountability partners.
Why do you think that is? It's a very interesting concept, and it's very true.
Yeah, because we don't want to let other people down. We care about what other people think of us. We want to, be looked, upon in this certain light. We want people to think good things about us or be impressed by us, the ego for one. And we don't want to be the source of anyone's pain or suffering. So we do all these things to make sure that we try to keep that intact, which is, sometimes goodwill and human nature, but other times it's way too much involvement in what other people think. And that's part of this non-negotiable you, is like, you got to let go of that. You have to bring it back to yourself, care what you think, care, what you say, not what somebody else does, because that's what keeps you constantly seeking accountability from someone else. But when you care about letting yourself down, when you care about what you think about yourself, then you start seeking your own accountability.
Yeah. Do you feel like a lot of people, they don't care about themselves? Like they're just like, I'm just thinking in my past, or at any times of like, so walk me through that. What do you mean by that specifically? Like, because I think a lot of people beat themselves up, not physically, but mentally, or push themselves beyond limits that reduce performance dramatically. Like what do you mean by that? Walk me through that, because I think it's a good topic.
Yeah, I think that it's not that people don't care about themselves. It's just that they're okay being disappointed in themselves. There isn't the ramifications that they have with somebody else. And some people beat themselves up and are hard on themselves. But I would argue that a lot of times when people do that, it's almost like a way of easing the pain and the guilt. If I beat myself up about it and I feel bad enough about it, then, you know what I mean? It kind of like lessens the blow. And, we've got to be more accountable to ourselves if we want that to change. But it's like, think about it. If you had lunch or plans or meeting with somebody and you bailed on them 5 minutes before, you're probably going to be thinking about how they feel. Is that the right thing to do? All these things. And you may get some feedback from that person about it. But if you did that to yourself, if you had a commitment with yourself to maybe get to the gym or do something for your business, and 5 minutes before you bailed on it, what are you going to do to yourself?
Yeah. What do people do?
Nothing at all. They move on to something else that they wanted to do. And that's what I mean. There's not really any consequences.
I see.
right? But with somebody else, there's going to be a consequence. I can't believe you bailed on me so last minute. We had an appointment. You're going to get some feedback, and that's what keeps people accountable to other people.
Right, but isn't there like the feedback of I'm supposed to be going to the gym and I'm not going and now I'm overweight? Or the feedback of I'm supposed to be working on my business and doing sales, but I'm not, so now I'm going to lose money this month. Like there is some feedback, right? Of like not
there
doing,
is.
you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they're just, but some people are just like they'll just chalk it up to failure and then it becomes this vicious cycle of like I'm a failure, this is why.
Yep. It could be that. It could also be that, everyone has an excuse usually, right? Well, I had to get this done or I had to do this. There's always an excuse. And so that excuse is super convenient and you let yourself slide. And so then that becomes in this internal dialogue of like, well, I let myself slide because I had this excuse. So it becomes easier to do. And when you talk about, isn't there feedback? Well, let me ask you, have you ever had someone nag you about the same thing again and again and again? And it almost becomes like the Peanuts teacher, like, wah, 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 right? Like you don't even hear him anymore. Your mom asked you in your room every single day. You're like, I don't even hear it. It's basically what people do to themselves, right? The feedback is like, you're numb to it. Oh, I skipped the gym again and I feel out of shape, but like I felt that yesterday and I felt that last week and I felt that last month. So what's it matter? Right?
Go ahead.
I was going to say, so it illustrates that it's important too, that if that happens, you have to catch that feedback really early, like you said, right? Like, gosh, this really affected my sales for the month, my revenue or my weight or my energy, which kind of takes us back to that self-awareness piece. If you're self-aware, you catch that feedback and you do something about it. But if you're not self-aware, it just kind of slides by and there you are again, making the same choices, suffering, the same consequences, but ignoring the feedback.
Yeah, super true. I love this. I'm excited. So how do I want to read this book. Is that it behind you?
That's the Morning Mindset Journal. That's the companion.
Okay, that's right. Okay. So with this book, like,
yes.
Who's your ideal audience? Like who's going to get the most out of this?
You're going to hate me when I say this, but it really is. There isn't an ideal audience. I mean, the ideal audience is anyone who wants to live a better life or be more successful, because we're talking about the foundation of the best version of you. Right. So I would say if you are 100% satisfied with where you are in life and who you are, and you have nothing more to gain, then it's probably not the book for you. But if not, everyone has something to learn from it, Yeah. And so I would say if you had to pin it down, it's anybody who wants to up level in their life or business and wants to kind of cut out the external noise that causes, distractions, and really wants to have this trusting relationship with themselves.
Yeah, I think that's the key, the trusting relationship. It's interesting, Angie. I did a little vacation and I did it by myself. And I don't think I can't in my whole life. I don't think I've ever done something like that where I was like, like I've done a lot of hotel rooms in my day, but it wasn't for work and it was very weird. And I did a lot of thinking. I did a lot of like, I just was hanging out with myself. And, I actually thought it was I enjoyed it actually.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious from your point, like I felt sometimes even for somebody who, I teach next play and it's what we do, it's moving forward. Sometimes because I'm always moving forward, sometimes you forget yourself. I don't know. Sure. I don't know how to describe it, but you don't spend as much time with yourself and focus because like I'm reading books and I'm doing this, but it's always just about improving and getting better. And I think that's important, but like, I don't know. Is that something that you talk about at all in the book of like actually spending time with yourself and like?
I do.
Walk me
Yeah,
through
it's
that.
huge. Yeah, the first chapter of the book is you first. And that's the whole idea behind it, is that if you don't spend time with yourself and you
Mhm.
don't get to know yourself and you don't know how to like operate yourself and all of that, then you're not really like encouraged or enticed to do all these things for yourself. Right. And so you have to prioritize that. And I'm curious for you, like, what did you get from it when you spent that time with yourself? You had your at home staycation. What'd you get from it?
Yeah, I feel like for me, like, so one thing that I've been working a lot on is, and this is funny, it's turning into a coaching session, but I'm cool. I love it. I'm cool with it. Um, that's what I do on my podcasts, like, or
Right? I mean, it's
series called.
good. We can't help but it.
No, literally, we just bring people on and coach them. It's awesome. But no, I think that, like, I walked away and I wasn't planning on it. It wasn't like, oh, this is
Mhm.
gonna be, but I was like, oh, I'm hanging out with myself. I'm talking to myself. I'm walking around,
Mhm.
like, and I made it that way. I didn't even have my phone with me a lot of the time. And I would say, like, I've been focusing a lot on from my business perspective on getting really clear on our audience, because we do serve a few different audiences, and
Mhm.
I want to serve the type of people that I only want to serve a certain type of person now. I've gotten to a point in my, I'm sure maybe you have as well, where I just won't, we don't just enroll anybody. And
Mhm.
it's really important to me. Like, if I'm going to be communicating with somebody, it's somebody that I actually genuinely like want to help
Right.
in an area that's important to me. Um,
Mhm.
and so, I think for me, like, over that time, I would say I thought a lot about, like, who exactly is it that I want to continue to work with, and who
Mhm.
I want to work with. And so, having a talk with my team and even being like, I know I don't want to just enroll. So I guess this is the big thing, is I talked to my sales team and I was like, I don't want to just enroll anybody into what we do. Like, I really want to
Mhm.
start bricklayering who we're talking to, and here's why. And so,
Mhm.
for me, that was, I think, a big thing, because um, me just getting clear on, like, who do I want to work with. And so for me,
Yeah.
focusing on myself and just being like,
Mhm.
I don't care. Like, I don't need to work with anybody anymore. And so I don't know. That was my kind of takeaway, and that's a high level
That's
thought.
huge.
Yeah.
But you can see, I mean, if you kind of trickle that down, it's like by spending time with yourself, you created this space for you to look inward and start making decisions that align with you and your authenticity and your values. And what will come from that is you being able to use your gifts at a greater level, you being able to create a bigger success and achievement. Not that that's what you were necessarily focused on, but that's what comes from leading from within yourself
Yeah.
versus maybe before the external noise, right? Like, well, put everybody in there and we're selling this and we're revenue, because we just go with what we should, or everything we've been taught. But we have, and this from being coach, right? We have the best answers within us. So if
Hmm.
we're not tapping into those, we're
So true.
selling ourselves short.
Yeah.
Totally selling ourselves
I mean,
short.
I've had the same business coach for 5 years, and it's,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll tell you right now, like, there's a lot of times he pulls things out of me and I'm like, dang, I should have been doing this more often.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think I'm a good candidate for your journal and definitely for your book. For someone who's
I think
like,
you are.
I love it. So how do I get the journal? Or for anyone listening, how do they get the journal?
Absolutely. The book will be on Amazon Thursday, today, and you can buy the book there. The journal is actually on my website at angiewisdom.com. And
Is
to
that your
kind of
real
give you a
last
little bit of,
name, by the way?
it is my last name. Yes, people ask me all the time, is that your stage name? I'm like, I'm married to get it, but it is my last name. And the funny thing is that I created that journal a while ago because these were all components that I have worked with my clients for a long time. And I needed a way to help them practice these pieces every single day. It's like, you read a good book and you're like, oh, that's great. But if you don't actually implement what you read and integrate it into your life, it's just knowledge learned, not knowledge used and life changing. So I created that morning mindset journal. So I was like, okay, if we're learning how to master your mind, if we're learning how to take responsibility, how to be authentic, like we need a way to work on that every day. And so that's what kind of birthed the morning mindset journal, Start With You. And after other people started using it who aren't my clients, they were like, well, why is this important? Why is this important? That's what kind of then had me birth the book, so that people really understood those foundational pieces and why you practice them every single day. That takes 5 to 10 minutes, but that helps you create that non-negotiable you.
Yeah. And so it takes about, I'm just looking at the journal right now.
Yeah.
So awareness, intentions, affirmations, prayer, visualizations, level up growth, end of day reflection.
Yeah. Gratitude. Each piece of that corresponds to, a foundational piece of your non-negotiable you, like taking responsibility, being authentic, trusting yourself. It's all in there. But if we don't have a way to practice it, then we just know it and we share it with other people.
Yeah. What percentage of people do this every day, like that you work with? Like, how do you get them to commit to doing it, and for how long? You know what I mean? It's like, hey, for 90 days, for 21 days, right? For a habit.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get?
It makes me laugh and I'm smiling thinking about it, because it is not easy. It's like some people are like, I'll do whatever, like it's not easy to get them to do this and start a new habit. Some people jump right on it and they're like, they're in it and they love it and they're good to go. And other people like, I tried and then this came up, and it's hard to start sometimes. But once they get started, like day one, they're like, oh, I felt so much better. Like I felt more organized. I felt more focused. So you kind of get that, like just little, like almost hit a dopamine just from completing this process in the morning, your first day, but it grows with you and evolves with you. And I would say, honestly, I would say about 80% of my clients probably stick with it religiously. And you fall off sometimes because you're like, everything is great. It's almost, I equate it to like taking some kind of medicine, right? You're like, I feel great. I don't need this anymore. And I'll have clients that, use it religiously. And then all of a sudden they're like, I don't know, I'm just kind of in a funk. I don't feel like I'm getting much done. And I'm like, how's your morning mindset journal? And they're like, well, I haven't been on it for a couple of weeks. And I'm like, why do you stop something that's working for you? It's not a fix to get you to a place. It's a daily habit that's going to improve your mental health, your emotional health, your mindset, everything. So sticking with it. It's funny. One of my clients said to me, it works so well. I'm starting to feel like I'm a little too dependent on it. Should I worry about that? I'm like, it's okay. You can be dependent upon a morning practice.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think being dependent on something like that isn't necessarily a bad thing.
It's like saying you're dependent upon exercise. Well, it makes your body healthy, makes you feel good, right?
Right.
Being dependent on a morning practice that allows you to use your mind and be present and be grateful and all of that, that's a good thing. It's emotional health.
Being dependent on anxiety, being dependent on cigarettes, being like those are things. Being dependent on alcohol. These are
right. Yep.
Being dependent on excuses, right?
Yes, 100%.
Instead, all you have to do is be dependent on Miss Angie Wisdom's journal and buy her book, the Non-Negotiable You, and then you can be dependent on yourself. I like that.
Yes, there you go. Be dependent on yourself. I mean, that's what we're going for here.
Did
right?
Steve at all? Did you work with Steve at all? Did he help you with the coming up with the name or anything like that? Because he helps me a lot on that front.
Yeah, he actually was a very big part of the name. We were going through so many different names. The name of the book was originally Start With You, and everyone I talked to was like, nope, it's not going to work. Can't do it. So that was the name of my journal. But yeah, then we came up with Non-Negotiable You.
Because I really like that name.
You know, their whole thing was like, it's not enough of a directive. You know, like if you're going to tell somebody what to do, you have to be really specific, and Start With You doesn't say a whole lot, and it doesn't tell people a whole lot. It's not sexy enough. There's all these reasons, you know, so. And in the end, I'm glad, because I love the Non-Negotiable You.
Yeah, it's very catchy. It's very, like, I was immediately like, wait, what? Like when I wrote, what is that? What is that?
Mm-hmm.
And that's all you're looking for, is for people to be like, what? And then you can hook them in. It's the hook.
Yep.
The hook is just to say,
hook.
wait, what is that?
And you know what I love about it too, is that it's this filtering process for people. And I still use it for myself. Like, oh, you know, the other day I didn't have a car. I forgot I didn't have a car, and I went to go to the gym, and, you know, I had all these reasons why I didn't have to go, you know, and I was like, I'll ride a bike, you know, I'll ride my bike to the gym, because I went, what would the non-negotiable you do? And I'm like, the non-negotiable you would walk there or ride a bike there. That's what the non-negotiable you does. Versus, you know, me a long time ago would have been like, oh, sorry, I can't make it. I don't have. So you don't negotiate. So you can use that filter all the time. You don't feel like you're doing your business development. You don't feel like having this tough conversation. You don't feel like, you know, showing up authentically. What would the non-negotiable you do? And instantly you're like, that's what it would do.
Got it. That's interesting. Okay, cool. So for anyone listening right now, I'll have the link in the description below, or I have the link in the description below. So if you're interested, and it's on Amazon, right? Is that where? Okay, cool. So it's gonna be on Amazon. Now, let me ask you this, Angie. What's your next play? Like, what are you focusing on moving forward from here after launching your book?
That's a good question, Richie. I've been so focused on the book right now. My next play might be taking a vacation.
Seriously?
No. Honestly, I'm super excited to write my second book. I've had it on my mind
already,
and I loved the writing process. Said I was a horrible writer, and I loved it.
Nice. So do we get
what did you say? I'm sorry.
Do we get a
it's kind of in the direction of Choose Your Seat, which is a new program that I'm launching as well. And it's all about, like, now that you have this non-negotiable version of yourself, how do you actually get in the seat that you want to be in, instead of just kind of being stuck where you are, whether it's that next level revenue in your company, whether it's that next job promotion, it's choosing the seat that you truly want to be in and conquering that.
So once you've become non-negotiable, now you have to choose where you want to go.
Yeah, you're capable now. There's nothing holding you back. So no more excuses. Let's figure out where you want to go and what you want to do, because you're on your way.
I love that. Okay, awesome.
Thank you. Yeah.
So tell us about your business real quick. So for people out there that may be struggling with some of the challenges that you're sharing here, how do you work with your clients? What does that look like?
I work with a few, really maybe 10 kind of one-on-one clients. I have a very select group of one-on-one clients that I work with. That's usually on a yearly basis. And then I have a couple of group programs. So the Non-Negotiable You is actually a 12-week program. And I take clients through that. That's really building up their foundation. And then that Choose Your Seat program will be coming out as well, which is really that elevated. Now that you are that non-negotiable version, where do you want to be? So that's the majority of the way clients work with me. And then I do a lot of corporate speaking and training and things like that for companies.
I love that. Oh, so you do corporate stuff too?
I do, yeah.
Nice. Okay, cool. Yeah. And so if anybody wants to find you, how can someone contact you? What's the best way?
The name is easy, Angie Wisdom, and it's LinkedIn, Angie Wisdom, YouTube, Instagram, Angie Wisdom Life Coach. But there are not too many wisdoms out there. So just put Angie Wisdom on there, angiewisdom.com.
Yeah, I just Googled it, and then boom, all your reviews came up, your social links. Google her.
Yes, it comes up easy. Yeah, I've got great clients. They're very loyal.
I love that. Okay, cool. Well, Angie, thank you so much for coming on. I'm super excited for your book. If you're listening right now, definitely go grab yourself a copy. I have the link below. The Non-Negotiable You by Angie Wisdom.
Mhm.
This is awesome. Angie, thank you so much for being on. And for everyone listening, if you're on YouTube and you enjoyed this episode and you liked it, please make sure to subscribe if you want to listen to more. Or if you're on Apple or I can't even say it, Apple or Spotify or whatever you're listening to your podcast, and you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review. It always helps. So thank you so much for listening. And Angie, thank you so much for being on.
Thanks, Richie.
Awesome.